mantra. Chosen words, chosen to evoke meaning, understanding, to empower those it's intended to. A sacred utterance, which holds psychological powers over those who utter it. So for Apple, whose mantras think different? As well as this, its newer and current design by Apple in California leads us to believe they are a pinnacle of 21st century thinking. That Apple's iPhone is not just a smartphone, rather, it represents a distinctive moment both in the very short history of mobile media and in the much longer history of cultural technologies. The Silicon Valley company is at the forefront of what tech should be, and how it has come to be that in the global context, they are the heart of forward thinking. The life cycle of the iPhone does indeed start in California, in the Apple headquarters at Apple Campus, and if you were to look on the back of the phone, it will tell you this. As well as assembled in China, the point of note is the journey in between. The Democratic Republic of Congo, 15,000 kilometers away from the multi-billion-dollar offices in California, in an archaic coltan mine, is where the first tangible element of the iPhone starts. The precious linchpin for 21st century technology, the key to creating tantalum, present in almost every modern electrical device or processing equipment today. Miners toil away in conditions reminiscent of centuries ago, working by hand, using simple hand tools, using their bodies to dig and shift and carry this precious material out of the mine in conditions dirty, hot, and dangerous. Such actions have been reflective historically, where Lord Acton refers to those without social power who are deprived of his exclusive authority, and the throne is surrounded with and guarded by political institutions. Workers sacrifice their own health and well-being for barely enough money to survive in order to secure the most crucial of pieces for 21st century convenience and luxury. This is just one of the components which demonstrates the effects of consumerism and capitalism and the negative impact it has on others, in the way that privileged are able to use the cheapest and cost-effective forms of labour and resources in order to provide themselves with the best at the expense of others. Everyday corporations expropriate social wealth on the net and oppress the working class at each corner of the earth behind the scenes. The manufacturing of iPhones happens in China largely through the use of Foxconn and Pegatron. They contribute to making around 200 million iPhone products each year. Foxconn, a multi-billion-dollar company, ranked 112th out of the Fortune 500 companies, which not only manufactures for Apple, but also for every other major household electronics company. The scale of this process is so large that the company's factories evolve into their own cities, with housing, shops, restaurants, hospitals, and fire services. This just highlights that manufacturing iPhone demands have led to new communities being formed just to supply the demands. These communities are far from idyllic. Apple exude tranquility and elegance in their public perception, the warm, friendly staff in their stores, and helpful customer service, yet this does not extend through the manufacturing. Foxconn became under global scrutiny after the attempted suicide of 18 individuals and the resulting 14 deaths. The conditions Foxconn workers are subject to are far removed from the image Apple portray and perpetuate. In efforts to maximize efficiency and profits, Foxconn take measures to dehumanize and degrade workers, to turn them into a living machine which serves the ultimate objective of producing. Profit maximization is the ultimate corporate principle under which workers' dignity and well-being are of no concern. At work, this living machine made of humans must subject themselves to arduous tasks, sitting and standing, with military discipline as they conduct repetitive and monotonous tasks with high targets. Workers are restricted from getting breaks, often working full shifts without any. Those who do only receive short breaks dependent on them meeting their high quotas. Workers are forced to sign voluntary overtime pledges, which renders them unable to refuse overtime, leading them to working long shifts. The working environment becomes harmful as workers are provided with limited personal protective equipment and are ill-informed about the dangers in their workplace. Many unsure if the chemicals they use and are exposed to consistently are harmful to them or not. And when incidences arise, the workers are pressured into taking sick leave over medical leave, in order that this is taken at workers' expense and not the company, leaving workers to foot the bill for health expenses and for management to hide the incidents from the company. We are consuming the blood and tears of the workers, a face hidden from us by fancy advertisements. Workers operate in fear of those higher up, harassed and physically abused by members of the security operating as the company's private police. Workers fear that if they ring from inside of Foxconn to the police, that the calls are diverted to security instead. Not that they believe it would be of benefit to them, as Foxconn receives special status. It deters police from intervening in matters inside of the company. Workers operate in fear of management who have no traditional managerial skills, but who provide ridicule and punishments for failures within the company, for errors made, or even just not making deadlines and performance expectations. Workers are forced to overwork, perform tasks from cleaning to writing out lines and being ridiculed. They have their failures pinned to notice boards, must announce their failures in front of colleagues, as well as performing demeaning tasks such as cleaning the toilets. The workers of Foxconn become victim of a class system. Under the Marxist model of class, the workers are the proletariat, having no means to produce for themselves, are forced to having to sell their labour and become exploited by the bourgeois. Often, workers are not able to escape the rule of Foxconn, even after they finish their shifts, as many live in Foxconn dorms and facilities. Cramped conditions with little to no comfort, often 8 people sharing a room, with strangers from different provinces working different jobs and shifts. In order for workers to become alienated and work-orientated, this alienation continues back inside the workplace under Marx's theory of alienation, as workers become pitted against each other as a result of working under a capitalist institution where their levels of production becomes the commodity. The facilities are lacking, sharing communal amenities and living under strict rules, such as when to be in the dorms and what you can and can't do, breach of which results in more public humiliation. Workers must also attend meetings before and after work which are unpaid. The extremities of these working conditions do not come at great reward to workers, who only just earn above minimum wage but fall short of the living wage, forcing workers to need the overtime, working 6 days a week and often 12 hours a day. After global awareness of Foxconn and its practices came to light through the publicity of its workers' suicides, a number of responses happened. Apple clarified its standpoint of only working with companies who abided with local labour laws, and that they were launching an investigation into companies manufacturing Apple products. Whilst Foxconn announced taking measures in order to prevent suicides, which most obviously took the form of suicide nets, to catch people jumping off company buildings rather than tackling the source of motivations. Apple, who have oversaturated the mobile phone marketplace, have created a growing demand for their product, which Apple meets by the use of mass production through companies like Foxconn. This was foreshadowed by Alvin Toffler in 1980. Apple, in their pursuit to dominate the marketplace, have contributed to the conditions in which Foxconn workers find themselves in. Sweatshops are characterized as companies who conduct mass violations of labour laws, such as underpaid workers, no social insurance, and high levels of industrial injuries. Foxconn breaches all of these, and it becomes evident that Foxconn operates through the use of sweatshops. The contrast between the idyllic Apple image and its means of production highlights ever-increasingly disparity in the conquest of the East and its luxuries at the expense of the West. With the launch of the iPhone comes the spectacle of the iPhone. Apple hold their unveiling, showing to the world the latest addition to the iPhone lineage. The spectacle draws you in anticipation to what is the future. The next step in the process of the iPhone, it becomes the next step of us. Shows us the way we are going to live from that point on. Apple set the terms for what we are capable of doing. They give us a tool with the features they have designed, and it's up to us to wield it. They launch the phone and we wait with bated breath as they give us our future. We see and we want, believing possession of the object gives ourselves value and social equity. With this, they are chumming the water for us social consumer sharks. Next comes the feeding frenzy as the phone goes on sale. People queue often for days, lining the streets outside stores in order to be the first to own the phones. Media coverage documented the excitement, interviewing people on the street who have purchased theirs to find out how lucky and fortunate they are. This is a prime example of what Edward Thorndike explained as the halo effect. With Apple as a brand being so popular and desirable in the public eye, the public connect longing and elegance to one or more aspects of them, be in their products or branding, and transfer it to the rest of the company's image and products, and become predisposed to what anything new that they offer, regardless of quality, and to perceive them to be not involved with negative elements such as exploitation of workers. If looking at how Apple operates from the perspective of Foucault, in that the power over discourse is controlled by institutions or individuals who disperse power, efficiency, and silently through their apparatus to ensure that their power is not detected, Apple creates spectacle in their branding through the launch and capabilities of the iPhone and its home in Silicon Valley to hide from the public conscience the negative impacts the iPhone creates. Apple also breaks typical supply and demand models. The average cost of an iPhone is over double the manufacturing and labour cost of the actual device. The demand they create to own an iPhone allows them to place them on the market at a price matching it. Yet, this profit is not distributed throughout the iPhone's creation, allowing Apple to retain their power over both the public and their workers at all levels. Matt Dawson says that we may not need the new goods produced by capitalism, but this does not mean we don't want them. Each year, a new iPhone is advertised and it generates the desire for one to buy it. Not that we need to, we just want them based on what we see on adverts. When new iPhones come into stores, we are so blinded by the beauty and the content of the phone that it becomes a must-have. Apple capitalizes on this. When the iPhone 4 came to existence, a lot of people bought them as it was the newest and best. But when iPhone 5 came out, everything changed. The desire of people to buy the phones was even higher. And then came the iPhone 6, iPhone 6S, and now the iPhone 7. Everything changes again. Bauman described this that as a society driven by advertising and consumption is one where wanting, desire and longing become key characteristics of our daily lives. The iPhone is a fetish with a cultural and industrial origin tied to the twin locales of Silicon Valley, the site of its design, and China, the site of its production. With the ownership of an iPhone, the relationship with Apple does not stop here. With Apple products, the service attached to your device continues when you leave the store. The company provides you with updates, updating your operating system until your phone becomes too obsolete to do so, and then an upgrade is required. The iPhone becomes linked and connected, exceeding the use of a telephone. The cloud syncs, storing your data online, accessible anywhere and everywhere. The Apple stores become products of a consumer society. The geniuses working in them provide an act, as they serve pre-scripted lines and phrases. Each new customer they act out the performance to, welcoming us, adapting to which script they need, dependent upon our needs as a customer. The pretense that they are serving us while serving Apple. Smiling is not just an emotional expression. It is also a technique to provoke the irreducibly bodily and autonomic capacity of both workers and customers' individualized bodies to coalesce and shape the collectivity of a life. Every time when we walk into an Apple store, we feel warm and excited because of the hearty welcoming from the specialists with a big smile on their face, and they are able to listen and understand our needs. This is how customers are affected by the workers. Since their feeling and emotion are being manipulated, they are more likely to purchase in store. This is also a key factor for any business to be successful. Charged with a strong affective intensity, the smiling face accelerates the proliferation of pleasure, comfort, and joy to establish a collective among those sharing the space. The real value of the iPhone and its worth against the monetary, environmental, and personal cost it has is a highly subjective value to measure. One key consideration in making this is its life expectancy and working existence. Apple creates a situation in which iPhones become obsolete shortly after their launch, with slight changes to the latest model becoming available. They create demand. For those able to, this demand is met as they purchase the latest model. Environmental consideration weighs heavily when considering the life expectancy of the phone, as already through its life it has travelled around the world, from the mining and sourcing of its raw elements and components, sent away to be manufactured, then shipped globally. The destruction of land, the cost in natural resources, fuel and carbon footprint left in the wake of the iPhone. If an iPhone lasts for 2 years, as long as the average phone contract, is this cost benefit worth it? Whilst the life of an iPhone from its inception in California its extract and assembly from around the world is not a hidden secret, and some aspects are kept quiet or simply not aspects which slip into daily life and discourse. It still remains that to some level we are aware of the negative impacts they have in the world, whether it be cost on the environment or the cost and toll it takes out on humans and society. We still consume, we still become hypocrites, we still buy and use and want them. We shut out the noise and the negatives surrounding them. We only look to ourselves, to the how we will enrich our lives, how our lives will become better, more productive, more fortunate, and there's no harm to anyone doing that. It's just an iPhone, right? We simply are hypocrites.